can everybody hear me? Am I there? Oh, come on in, Ryan. Hi. Hey, I gotta make sure I'm up. Let's see. Can you hear me? Can you? Oh, you can. Good. I've got Ryan here joining me. This is my first one. We're working through a few little bugs here, but I think we're good. I see it on the screen now, so right on. Say hey to Ryan. Hi. Say hey to everybody out there. So we got a ton of people on here. I'm not going to be able to keep up with all of the comments like I normally do. You'll have to forgive me for that. But I basically did not have a video ready. Haven't been on the water in a while. And we did a big family vacation last week up in Pigeon Forge. And you may have seen some of the Facebook posts and the video I put up this morning, but Ryan was Mrs. Adventure. Had a fun weekend. She did bungee jumping, zip lining, the Zorb balls, all kinds of awesome stuff. And she impressed me a couple times, especially on the tightrope. How'd you feel on the bungee jump?
Scared.
Scared, yeah, but she did it anyway. She did it scared, so that was very cool. But so we got a fun show. Probably the most talked about subject I have on the channel that I've never done a video about is how do you film a kayak trip? And so what I figured I'd do is go ahead and talk about that tonight and bring in my panel of people that help me out. I've got Gatewood Brown, of course, as you saw. He's my original videography, cinematography, editing mentor. Brian's down in the basement and he's a professional photographer. My sister gets no love because she's never on the channel, but she's a professional photographer. Austin Wallace is in there, and you've seen his work. He's really into the cameras and the filming, does a fantastic job. And I got one electrician who is also a photographer, and then me, who basically pushes the button on my GoPro and stares at people swimming, and that's kind of my expertise. But I figured I'd talk about it kind of from the top down, how I approach doing the river. Hey, there's Thomas. I'm wearing your shirt, man. Got to get the Lodi Paddle Sports logo in there. I figured I had to represent sooner or later. But let's get right into it. So basically, I would say there's three kind of ways to do it. And one way is kind of like Ken Whiting and the Paddle TV crew. You're making a full-on paddling film, and you're going out with a full production. You got a cameraman. You're looking for shots, and you're really trying to showcase the river or an organization or a paddler. And you're going out there seeking the shots, being very intentional about it. We may run a rapid 3, 4, 5 times, do it with different camera angles, drones, all that sort of stuff. And it's not really a trip. It's more of you're paddling to get the shots, and the shots are done with very expensive cameras and all done just right. And it's just an incredible amount of work. And that's one way to do it. I tend to be kind of on the other side of the spectrum where I'm doing incidental filming. So when I go out, I'm filming kind of documentary style, just what's happening. And so I do some B-roll. I don't really set up shots or scenes or something. I may capture time lapses or set a camera up just to capture us paddling by every now and then. But once we're gone, that's it. We're gone. We're on to the next rapid. And somewhere right in the middle of all that, between the shot selection being very important and setting things up and getting quality shots, and then me, who's just bobbing down the river with the GoPro and positioning myself to try to get certain shots and whatnot, is someone like Gatewood Brown, who kind of wants the video to tell the story of the trip they're on, but merging that with the intentionality and the camera prowess with the good cameras and the drone shots and this to capture that in the best way. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Gatewood into the house. And there he is, everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Pete, thanks for having me in.
Absolutely. And so if you don't know Gatewood, Gatewood Brown has a channel called Gatewood Brown. And I first noticed him just in my feed a few years back. He had a spattering of followers, probably a few hundred, 500 maybe.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
But I was instantly drawn to his channel because it was it's amazing, the editing and the shots he was getting. Really polished, really good looking stuff. And the story was also awesome. He and his buds having a good time, he and his buds and his brother. And we started communicating a little bit. He did a trip with us, and I told him he was going to be a star because it was just too good and Gatewood's too cool. And now he's at, I think, 25,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
and,
which is insane.
Yeah, and he's in Texas.
It's weird,
so kayak camping in Texas is tough. But
yeah,
he's
people
out
don't do
there
it. You know, there's a pretty small scene that does it, and our Facebook groups are pretty active. But I mean, it's nothing like a place like Canada or North Carolina or even out west where kayaking is just a huge scene. So it's been really cool because I think a majority of my viewership is based in Texas, which is kind of cool. Which
cool.
makes sense though. I mean, there's a massive population there.
Yep.
But it's been really rewarding to see.
It's been fun to watch it explode for you. He's got a couple videos that are in the trip videos that are in the like 370-ish, almost 400,000 views, which for a kayak trip, that's a lot of views. Most of the time when you get those extreme views, it's on like a tutorial or a tarp setup or something that's people are looking to better themselves by watching your video versus they want to come be a part of the experience you filmed. So it's a testament to what he's able to put together on his channel. So if you haven't checked out Gatewood's channel, go do that and subscribe. And on top of all that, Gatewood is a top-notch guy, high-class guy, and he gets the 5-star River King approval. So welcome to the channel. Look, so what I want to do tonight is you can post your questions, and we'll kind of go that way. And while we're doing that, Gatewood, if you want to just talk to the viewers about what drew you to filming and videoing and GoProing and kayak camping and all that, wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it all kind of started with cameras first. We loved making home videos and going and stealing my mom's point and shoot and going out to the trampoline and just doing stupid stuff. And then you get back in, you get all excited because you have some footage and you get into Windows Movie Maker, and then we would just put out edits. And I was looking at it the other day. Because I was really intrigued to see what the first date I uploaded a YouTube video was. And it was like 2008, which I don't even think people realized that YouTube was around back then.
Right.
It didn't really get big until recently, the past couple of years. But yeah, so, you know, we would put stupid stuff up on the internet. And then I went away from filming stuff, went off to college and kind of was focused just on studies and social life. And I had grown up going to summer camp in North Carolina. So I had an outdoors background, and we were definitely an outdoors family growing up. And I graduated college and moved back to Houston, which, if anybody is familiar with Houston, it's not exactly a mecca of outdoors. It is a concrete jungle on the Gulf Coast plain, and all of our creeks and stuff are just muddy bayous, call them bayous down here. And so I just didn't really, like, for the first 4 years after graduating college, I didn't really do a ton of outdoor pursuits in and around my home area. You know, we would go out to the mountains and ski and hike in the summers and do all that. But it wasn't until I finished up doing a bunch of like triathlons and stuff that I was like, okay, you know, what's the next thing that I'm going to do? And I remember one of my favorite trips at summer camp was canoe camping. And I think we went out to Lake Fontana and then paddled up one of the arms to a primitive campsite. Nice. I just remember thinking that was the coolest thing because it's not something a lot of people think of. You know, when you think of camping, you think of your car camping or an RV or backpacking. And I think backpacking is usually the number one thing people think of. Yeah. And so the fact that you kind of like open up trail and have a much more custom type of trip on a canoe or kayak was just awesome. So I figured, hey, why not try that as an adult? And so I got a couple of my buddies together and we started planning a trip on one of our local rivers here in Texas. And it was a complete disaster. But fortunately, I filmed the whole thing. Little GoPro Hero 4.
Nice.
We didn't seek any help on planning mileage or understanding flow rates. And so, of course, you know, most first trips are a disaster. Yeah. But it was good, man. We had a blast.
That's awesome.
And I was so stoked to get back home and start editing because truly I enjoy the editing piece and the filming piece just as much as the trips, which I
Yep.
think is important if you are going to be filming.
Yes. And
But
I agree. For me, that's I'm a musician. If you know me, I was a drummer I guess I'm still a drummer. I just don't drum much anymore. And I did take art a lot through school. And then even when I was a carpenter, all those are creative outlets. And I've always enjoyed a creative outlet. But the editing is that outlet for me now. Like as much as I enjoy being on the water, I really also, like you say, just enjoy making the video. And
yeah,
and you can tell the channels where that shows up. If it's just pieced together clips, you can still see the fun they're having, but it doesn't emanate the same. It doesn't come across the same as someone who really loves to get in there and tell a story visually.
yeah, totally. And if you want something sustainable, then you have to love it. I mean, that's just otherwise you're going to drive yourself crazy and go and be miserable. Like some people just shouldn't bring a camera on their trips other than to take pictures on their cell phone because cell
Yeah.
phones are awesome these days. But yeah, it was kind of weird because I remember kind of in the young adult phase, after college, and my brother is a musician, a touring musician. It's what he does full time. He plays the fiddle for a Texas country band. And so I was like, oh, he got all the creative genes. Like for some reason, creativity and myself are not two things I ever like combined. I was
Mhm.
like, it's just not me. It's all Bennett. Because he could like speak three languages coming out of high school. You'd give him an instrument and he would just immediately start playing chords and putting tunes together. And you're just like, wow, that's impressive. And it wasn't until I started messing around with a camera and mostly video. I mean, it's like we're talking, I'm 95% video and 5% photo when I remember to click the shutter button. But it wasn't until I started messing around with that I realized that, oh my gosh, this is like a cool creative outlet that I love like a lot, like a lot, a lot. And so it's a great way to break up kind of like my day job, my corporate life, and then come home and get to spend time reliving your weekend adventures.
Yeah,
It's a really fulfilling way to do that.
it is. And as Austin told me one time, who will be bringing in, Austin doesn't have a video feed tonight, but I think we can still hear him. He told me that his main reason for his channel is to stay connected to these memories. And I thought that was a really good way of putting it. So the more you put into that video, the more you're going to get out of it later for yourself, the
Totally.
viewer as well. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
poor my wife, Lisa, she has to watch all those videos over and over again because, nostalgia is one of the most powerful things, and I tell you
yeah,
what, you certainly get it when you go back and you watch your old videos.
that's
And I
right.
see a question from Thomas real
Oh yeah,
quick,
Thomas
just
came up with a good question.
yeah, about film school. No, I'm a business major, and that's kind of what I do as a career. Everything I've ever learned or done with a camera is kind of just like self-taught. But I say self-taught because I spent hours watching YouTube videos, and I think I saw Peter McKinnon's name pop up in the chat. That's a really big one. But then I think I found a lot of inspiration from certain creators over time, and you definitely see kind of like an evolution of developing my own style. Because I think when you start out, it's almost impossible not to emulate the people you're watching
Mhm.
because that's all you know. And once you go on a couple trips, it doesn't take many. You start to understand the angles that you like and the story you like to build and the video you put together.
Yep.
But
And I will agree with that. In fact, my channel, I never set out to have a YouTube channel.
right.
That's the long and short of it. Basically, I was in baby jail. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but when you have small children like babies, you can't do anything because they're either asleep or they're needing constant care. You got to be in the same room with them, or if they're napping, just you got to be quiet, but outside. And there was a channel called Miles Paddled, and I'll put that. It's YouTube, just YouTube Miles Paddled. He's up in Minnesota, I believe, and he just had a camera mounted on the bow of his. I think it was a tsunami back then, and they were just paddling like every stream in the whole region, and none of them were like really, breathtaking waterfalls or rapids or anything. It was just sliding through the backwoods, and I was following this channel, and I was like, that'd be cool to put a camera on the boat sometime. And I couldn't do anything, so I was watching his videos, and it was almost like I was paddling down these streams. And so my wife gave me the camera. She said, if you're going to be doing these trips, you should probably just record it. And I was like, well, all right. So I used to joke, we'd see the YouTubers with the kayak, with the helmets, camera mounted on the helmet. And we would say, what kind of self-absorbed person would camera himself all day with a GoPro? Like, let's just
That's
paddle.
an excellent point, because you never feel cool strapped up with cameras.
No, yeah. But yeah, so that's how I started. And I just kind of I like that look of his bow. So that's what I did. And it all starts somewhere, like you're saying. And you just kind of find your own style from there. And yours is not like any other camping channel or kayaking channel that I've seen. You bring a lot of the polish and the top level editing game in there.
Yeah.
And why don't you talk to us about how you got into that side of things?
Sure. Well, I guess because this isn't something I can dedicate a ton of time to, everybody has life, but at the same time, like I want every video to kind of have a big impact. And so I think I naturally spent a lot of time on each edit. And then of course that just magnifies with each one. You kind of want to get better and better with each edit. And then of course, as you're kind of researching how to make better videos, which I spend a lot of time watching, you start to learn like, oh, if I tell a story, like then the audience can better understand our trip. Because when you go on a trip and you film stuff and you have inside jokes with your buddies, then it's really easy for me to watch raw footage and understand exactly what happened. But it's not easy for the audience to really understand that. And so just trying to include so many different details, and then how do I best portray them? Well, if I'm trying to set the landscape, then I want to put a drone in the air.
Yeah.
And then I also want like a nice wide shot from the GoPro, just, maybe showing the canyon walls and how high they go.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've always really wanted a nice polished edit. And maybe it's because the people that I watched. And so I love, I've got my camera sitting next to me. This is my favorite camera, by far. It opens up the best shots. And then, I really enjoy using the bigger camera.
Very nice.
But you can't use that going down a river all the time. Like if you're in a rapid, there's no way to capture a rapid with a bigger camera. And with a drone, you kind of get an elevated view, and it makes the rapids look small. Anything like the lower your camera, the bigger the wave looks.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's so immersive to have a GoPro on top of your head or on your chest. And so, yeah, it's been so cool to use the different tools to portray a story.
Oh,
and then you start to go frame by frame and just make sure, like, if your camera like bumps or whatever, you cut that out.
Yeah. So I will say that when we started getting to know each other, Gatewood would be asking me some questions about camping or kayaking, and I'd be buzzing him like, hey, how do you, and I was getting like the dummy tutorial on how to edit and how to do YouTube. So we kind of help each other out a little bit. And there's been a lot of times where I was racking my brains trying to figure out how to do something.
Oh, yeah.
And then what I came to realize is that Gatewood is spending hours and hours on seconds to get it just right. And I'm like pumping them out a little faster. So when I start getting down in the weeds, sometimes it's fun. It's so fun to do that. But then I'm trying to find a balance between telling the story and getting my product out on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And then, sometimes I try to be special. And
I heard someone say that like you never really finish an edit. You kind of just stop.
Yeah.
And because you can comb through every single frame. And for you guys out there, a frame, one of these, you're usually shooting about 60 frames per second. A frame is a picture. So you shoot 60 pictures a second. And if you have a 10-minute video, what is that? 600 seconds, 600 times 60. What is that? 36,000.
Yeah. 36,000 pictures you've stitched together.
So like when you put together a 10-minute video, it's 36,000 pictures, but you probably had maybe 5 times the amount of footage.
Yeah.
So you're really going through 150,000 pictures just to get down to 36,000 pictures.
Right on.
So I've never thought of it like that. Well, that's
weird. Someone said, hey, you get the best still shots from your trips. And I'm just ripping a still out of the video. And so I'm just videoing the whole time. And I think I figured how many hours of video I had that day. I was like, I had 500,000 photos to choose from, and I got
Yeah.
one good one. So that's accuracy through volume right here. That's how
For
I
sure.
do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's spot on. And that really ties in well to Garner's question here.
Yep.
Pete, I'll let you go first.
So what happens more frequently? You go into your trip with the video in mind, or on the trip and piece together the story later. So I have always just let the trip tell the story. At the very beginning, I was like, what do I want to do? I was trying to, maybe I'll get this shot, or maybe I'll try to get a shot like that. And what I found, that the story is going to happen. And so I literally just film everything. Like the camera is always on, and Brian and the rest of the guys will tell you, I mean, I run through probably 5 batteries a day per GoPro, and on a week-long trip, I might have a terabyte and a half of footage to start editing, and it's a ton. But then I kind of remember the highlights because I don't want to miss anything, and that's the story's in there. I just got to pull it out when I get home. And Gatewood, how would you describe your style?
Yeah, the exact same. You know, whenever you go on a trip, you can't manufacture stuff to go wrong. Like, don't worry, it will go wrong.
Yeah.
Which makes for fun story. And you know, things will go right, which makes for fun story. And you know, some days it'll be, if the weather's bad, you know, that adds to the story. But if you get a great sunset, you know, that's wonderful too. But you just can't plan, especially with kayak camping and outdoors in general. There's just no way to plan on what's going to happen as far as how your story is going to end up.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you obviously you want to have a plan for the trip, but you shouldn't really have a plan for filming.
Yeah.
As far as like, okay, we're going to do this trip down this river, and my story for the edit is going to be this.
Yeah.
Like, no, you just kind of let it unfold and let it happen naturally.
Yep. And that's
Which
where,
isn't to say you shouldn't have like a shot list.
yes. And that's my style. The other side of how things can go is when we were with Paddle TV, Ken was on a tour with the tourism boards and some other people they were working together, but he's putting together TV shows and productions highlighting areas, rivers, you know, and what they're good for. It's a completely different approach to all of it. And so it demands a different approach. And it's basically filming a river, or, you know, that's what I do. I film a river. He is making a paddling film about a river. So you're basically just going to need to figure out what you want to do. Do you want to go out and tell a story before you get out there? That's a completely different style than I do. There's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, that's a different way of doing it. Or are you going to just click a GoPro and forget it and like spend no mental energy towards what's happening? And then, you know, or like Gatewood and I were talking about. But on the more technical side of things, I would like to say that I do use a lot of techniques that I developed, like keeping my head very still, very locked on the target. Like no matter what's going on in the boat, I'm like keeping my head on like a gimbal. This is my gimbal. You know, you don't want to be doing this because you can't follow that as the viewer. And sometimes when it gets crazy enough, that starts happening. Same with my boat when I'm in the long boats. Trying to get a shot, you know, there's a lot of maneuvering the boat and a lot of extra work that goes into that to get turned around to film people coming through, the boom camera up. There is some things you can do that's more than just forgetting about the camera altogether. I don't think that's not going to produce a good product for you. So when I'm saying, and when Gate was saying, just film the trip, you still have to use some technical abilities with the camera. You know, what's going to be a good shot here? How does this rapid look there? And, you know, I think I'll bring up Brian here because, Brian, you ready to come up? I'm going to bring him on in. There's Brian. How you feeling tonight, Brian? Can you talk?
Yeah, I had it on mute. I'm sorry.
There you go. Oh man, he's not doing too good, folks. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear
keep
me?
talking. We can't see you well, but we can hear you. Sorry, Brian. It wasn't looking too good. But Brian used to show me things like shadows on the hills, backlit shots. So there is still a lot of artistry that goes into it. So I don't want to paint the picture like you just film and, no consideration to what shot you're taking. There is a lot of that. There's settings on your GoPro. We could get way down in the weeds on some of this, but having Brian on those early trips was fun because he taught me like the basics, like the thirds rule. You don't always want to center your shot, or you want to have this or that, or look for the contrast, look for the shadows in the hills, look for the backlit sections, look for the really lit up shots against a dark sky. Just all those things. Whoop, you pull out the GoPro and you hit that button and you film that moment, and maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't, but it is fun. The more you get into it, the more you start seeing, and the more you can kind of get after your shots. How do you feel about that?
You can direct your buddies as well. Like oftentimes I'll go shoot a rapid section that I think is going to look cool on camera, and I want to capture it with the big camera.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go do it first and then set up at the bottom, because the shot looking from the bottom of the rapids up just looks a whole lot cooler than if you shot it from the back going down, which isn't to say you shouldn't have those shots as well, because those can be cool and like kind of show that you're disappearing off into the wilderness.
Yeah.
Like, when you're down at the base of a rapid, you can see your buddies, laughing and smiling. And that's a really cool reaction to secure. And so you can do little things to direct. And then like, if you see your buddy about to go grab firewood, like, oh, this will be a good shot to help talk about, what we're doing at the campsite and how we're setting up.
Yeah. And Gatewood's slick with it, folks. When we were on that pack rafting trip, he did a video, I did a video. Mine was called Unsanctioned. And how did you title yours, Gatewood? If they want to look
this was like 5 days in the North Carolina wilderness pack rafting.
Yeah, something like that. But we were there the first night, or the first morning, I believe, and Gatewood would be over there like with the camera, kind of catching everybody nonchalant. And
the trees.
Those are the shots that you need. When you know you're being filmed, you kind of like start freezing up and staring at the camera. But when he's over there pretending like he's packing up, but he's filming you with his lens zoomed in on you a little bit, it makes some pretty neat B-roll and stuff. But
it's also why I'm one of the last people out of camp.
Yeah, it does take time. Here's a good question from Waterborne Camper. Nostalgia is awesome. I agree. It's why I started as well. But do you ever get to the point where you worry the filming is cutting into the escapism of your trip? Why don't you tackle that one, Gatewood?
Yeah, we really briefly touched on it earlier, and I think that's a really good observation. And it goes back to, you have to absolutely love getting the shot and filming, and then editing and producing a video. And you have to love all those parts, because I don't think I've ever really gone on a long trip without filming.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know what it's like to not, but I just know that if I was on a trip without my camera gear, I would not enjoy it as much, because I love taking video and pictures and capturing those moments.
Yeah.
And so if you don't enjoy it and you're just like, man, I want to start a YouTube channel and make YouTube videos, therefore I have to bring camera equipment and make videos, then yeah, you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to negatively impact it's going to negatively impact you and your video, because it's going to shine through.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you don't all like, I guess here's what I'll say. I will, like, especially when we arrive at camp, like, I'll know what shots I've already secured, and I don't need, 10 fire shots. And so if I already have 2 really good ones, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm done. And like, I've already filmed food. I already have bits of the story, so I can just hang out. And so you whip out your camera, film for a couple of minutes, and then you put it away for hours.
Yeah.
And so it's not always out. And then with a GoPro, it's so easy. Like, I'll be wearing a life jacket and I just shove the GoPro down here in my chest and I turn it on, and it's as if I'm not even filming.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really cut into it at all. And then I will take a front GoPro attached to the front of the kayak, filming backwards. And so it's really kind of nonchalant with it all.
Yeah.
It doesn't cut in a ton, especially if you're just sticking to GoPros. Now, I will say, having to whip out the drone and
that
film,
does cut in. Yeah.
it does cut in. Like that's a 30-minute ordeal.
30 minutes. I was going to say at least 30 minutes, maybe 45.
Right.
With Ken, they had 3-4 batteries. They're disposal at all times, so it may be an hour.
Right.
For those of you familiar with Wilson Creek, we spent 5 hours to get down to triple drop. It takes a long time to film like that, and it's a lot of work, and it makes you really appreciate, if you go watch Paddle TV and you watch their productions, it makes you appreciate the work that was put in to showcase where they're at, or the people or the organizations or the rivers or the lakes. It is a lot of work, and it makes me feel like I'm just cheating by just push and go and going down the river. But
there's a reason why their videos look better than ours, Pete.
That's right. I don't have a TV show, so maybe. No, they do a top-notch production. Ken's an awesome guy. If you didn't hear me say, Ken is an amazing person. So if you get a chance to go check out Paddle TV, go check that out. I think sometime in May, I think he's shooting to get our videos together up. And but I do want to bring Jerry Yang into this from Jer Kayaks. Hope you're ready, Jer. I'm gonna bring him in, and we talk about this sometimes. And I think you're muted.
How are you all doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'm posted up in a hotel right now. I'm actually halfway through a rescue course. So
I was about to say, that doesn't look like your toaster.
No, I had to. They wouldn't let me bring it for this. I tried to bring a personal vehicle, and they're like, "No, you have to use a team vehicle." So,
yeah,
my toaster's literally just sitting at the station right now, abandoned for a week until I get back to it.
So yeah, Jerry and I have had this conversation exactly several times on the river, and he's been doing this YouTube thing for about a year, maybe a little over or a little under, somewhere around a year. And sometimes he will take he calls it a work life day. He'll just leave that camera at home, and there's nothing wrong with that either. If you feel like it's becoming burdensome, that's not going to be a great product for you either. So Jerry, why don't you talk about your approach to that?
Right. So as a content creator, right, obviously we want to capture every interesting moment that happens, because there's always that idea in your head of like, oh, I don't want to miss, somebody swimming, or I don't want to miss this rapid. But I realized that if I'm always chasing the content, eventually it wears down a little bit, right? Maybe I go on a trip and I bring the camera and I go through all this trouble for 1 or 2 rapids, and I get home and I just feel like I didn't get to escape. Right? Like you asked, basically, how do I worry about it cutting into the escapism of the trip? So there will be times where I literally make a decision that, hey, I'm not bringing the GoPro today. So for example, on this rescue squad training, I made the decision not to bring the camera at all, because I've been going nonstop on this camera for the past few months. Will I regret that? I don't know, because there's times where something cool happens and I'm like, oh, I left the camera at home. But the fact that I literally leave it at home, which leaves me not an option to record it, I can't even get out of the water to pull the camera out. And because I've forced myself to not bring the camera, I now force myself to focus on that trip. And I've found that I'll do maybe 4 or 5 trips with the camera, and I'll do 1 or 2 without it. And sometimes, like I said, I miss something, but it's what I have to do in order to maintain that balance of not always being behind a camera and having to manage a GoPro and deal with batteries and everything. I can literally just focus on the trip and enjoy it. And at a certain point, you forget that you don't even have the camera with you. It's only when something really, really cool happens that you wish was on camera that you sort of think like, oh, I wish I had the camera. But a week goes by and that moment doesn't really matter more, right? The moment, the things you remember from the trip are the trip itself, not the fact that you missed that one shot that would have maybe been cool in a video.
Yeah, right on. And then I got a question from Anthony Barber. And in just a little bit, guys, in just a few minutes, I'm going to put up a link. If any of y'all want to join us, I'm basically copying the Canoe Hound adventurers format. He does a phenomenal job on these live streams, and he's much better at it than I. But I'm going to put a link up where you can come and join us in here and get on screen and talk. But from Anthony Barber, the thing about all you guys on this live stream is that you're all great storytellers. And this is a thing for me because I was making those early videos just so us on the trip could remember the trips we were on for ourselves. And so I would match the music to the sentiment of the moment or that day, and picking the songs can take forever, but I would get it all just right. And like Gatewood started, I started with the, we lost Gatewood briefly.
Oh no.
But I started with the GoPro 4, and it has a housing around the GoPro itself, and it blocks all the audio out. So you really didn't ever get our talking or any surrounding audio at all. And my mom was watching the trips, and I remember she said, it's nice and all, but if you weren't on the trip, no one knows what's happening. You should narrate. I'm like, narrate? This thing's just getting bigger and bigger. So I thought, she's right though. It's just a bunch of shots of a river. And so I tried narrating, and the first one was the New River. And I kind of had this wild idea to tell a story, kind of like Band of Brothers meets Lord of the Rings meets, kayak trip. And it was kind of hokey a little bit in some parts, but I had the most fun making that New River expedition trip, and talking about the beast and all this other stuff, and having fun with the guys. And I think that's when it really started connecting a little more for my viewers, is just telling a story. And another friend of mine, Bart, lives here in town. He's like, well, you can tell a story. You should keep doing that. So whether it's just visual, or you're narrating, or you're whatever it is, the story is what we're all trying to tell. Or sometimes it's a tutorial how to do something that's a little different. But tying all that in together is when we bring all that video to the editing room from a trip, basically you're remembering it just like you were there, and you remember the whole trip from beginning to the end. So maybe you know what's coming on day 5. And when you go rewatch it, you hear something in the edit that you missed in real life that means something, and you start piecing the story together. And it kind of, I just love the process there of letting that unfold as well. And like Gatewood says, it's going to happen on its own. We don't drum anything up. We don't, like when Brian loses his croc and it flows over the waterfall, and I think Brian's coming down there with it, that's all real. When we find his croc 1.5 miles later down the river, that's real too. So
I'm not above exaggerating a little bit though.
No, that was Sandstone Falls. That was, exaggerating, maybe highlighting would be a better term.
Yeah.
Highlighting is what it is.
Yeah.
So for myself, like I started this about a little bit more than a year ago, and I just got into whitewater. I just started paddling, and I'm watching all these videos, and a lot of the videos are just like some guy running the rapids. There's no narration. There's nothing except just like the rapids after another. And I'm looking at this, and to me, as a beginner at the time, that meant nothing, right? Like all I see is like a paddle goes across the screen, like there's some water splashing on it, and that I can't tell what's going on. When I started kayaking and started making videos, same thing. First, I started with like a video where basically I'm just doing the same thing, right? Like there's rapids and the paddle goes across the screen and the water splashes on it. And people that watch that video, they're like, hey, like this isn't interesting to me. I realized that if I could express how I felt as a beginner going into bigger and bigger rapids, dealing with the progression of growing in the sport, that was able to allow me to connect more with people. And that, I think, is what everybody needed. As far as the beginner whitewater community goes, a lot of us, I think, really needed that. Like, hey, we are all scared of this rapid the first time we see it, right? We are all not sure how to deal with this situation. And now that we're, there is the ability to say like, hey, I'm scared for this rapid and this is how I overcame it, or this is how I messed this up or whatever. I think that has really helped create a story and create a more friendly beginner environment, at least in the whitewater world.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a lot of content out there for that. Even some of the best paddlers on the planet, when they do make their tutorials, they're starting from been a pro for 10 years, and the examples that they're using, the paddlers are using to demonstrate what you're learning, they're also like pro level. And so they can't, even if they wanted to, they can't replicate the awkwardness and the newness of having a true day one paddler on the water. And so that's where I found myself when I got back into whitewater, teaching Pete when he wanted to do this. As I told all my buddies from the longboat stuff, hey, if you want to paddle with me this year, get a whitewater boat, because my son's into it and I'm not going to miss this opportunity. And by default, there we were teaching people how to whitewater paddle. So I just filmed it, and good, bad, and different. All the mistakes for the world to see, highlighted, freeze framed, circled, arrows. It takes a big person to allow someone to do that for the entire world to watch forever. Your mistakes. No one wants to be the subject of a how-to when it's the how not to part. But I just want to say I appreciate everybody that's been on my videos that has been a part of that, because it does help other people to see actual real people on their actual first days in a kayak. And, oh yeah, that's why I'm flipping, or, oh yeah, that happens to me too. And it shows everybody that the first day you get in this, you're going to feel like everything's going to tip you over. And filming that, since we're on the subject of filming, where I'm going with that is I just filmed it, and my channel took that direction, and I'll still do the camping trips, but it's an authentic experience as well. Like my first days meeting Jerry, and then look at what he did in less than a year running Class 5+ with me out there on Tallulah, seeing that progression, and as well as all the others, and my son Pete and everyone who started, Kevin Champ, to what you can do, I think is really encouraging to those getting into it. Like, hey, he was terrible a year ago and he's pretty good now, so I can do that too.
Yeah, that's one of the crazy progressions about making videos, because I think a lot of people will start off not really intending on growing a channel or community, and then a community starts growing, and then you get people saying, hey, like, on a trip, because I watch the River Kings videos and your videos and Jared's videos, and it's like, man, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. And then they start coming in more frequently, especially during summer when it's in season, and it's just like, man, this is like, you're actually doing some cool stuff, like above and beyond. Like, that's another step of reward that one can get from making videos, and it's the most wholesome reward for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, I was like, one of the best feelings I've ever gotten is when somebody messaged me or finds me on the river or whatever, and they're like, hey man, you've inspired me to get into kayaking, or to push my comfort zone, or whatever, like something along those lines. And that's one of the most heartwarming feelings I've ever had, where I'm literally like, I'm on the side of the river, maybe I'm having a rough day, I'm like draining my boat or whatever, and some guy pulls up and he's like, oh, you're Jared, and like, you're super inspiring, I watch all your videos, like I'm gonna hit Tallulah next week, like I watched your Tallulah video 40 times to see, and I think I can do it. And that, there's nothing to describe that kind of feeling, and that's something that I think you only get from, and that's not the intention of why I started the channel, but like from having a channel, that's something that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you're gonna have people approaching you on the street being like, dude, I bought a Honda Element because of you, and now I live in it down by the river. It's epic.
I hope so. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, so if you don't know,
I'll let Pete take
this. This is Jer Yang, Jerry Yang as I know him, but Jer Kayaks, you see, that's his kayaking channel. He's also got a channel called Jer's Toaster, and it's a side channel because he has just left the trappings of this world behind, and he's moved out of his house, pared his life down to he owns what he can fit in a Honda Element, and he is now your quintessential homeless dirtbag kayaker, living the dream of traveling about paddling and being a YouTuber. So go give him some support, Jer's Toaster. And Jer, I'm going to drop you out real quick. Don't go anywhere. Okay. I'm going to bring Kevin back up, or Kevin Champ in for the first time. So everyone go give Jer some love after this. And I think I'm going to bring you out in a minute, Jerry. So don't go anywhere. And now we have the wandering electrician who just got back in from a trip with his wife. But as far as progression, Kevin, why don't you talk about YouTube, how you got started filming, what that's done for you, then our relationship and where that's, you know, how your kayaking has progressed through the filming of it.
Whoa, that's a lot.
That is a lot. Speak fast.
Yeah, that's a lot. Let's see. Let me check the time. As pretty much anyone who knows me on a personal level knows that I'm about as ADD, AHD, what all those letters put together in one. So the camera came from a need for me and being able to settle down when I'm in the boat and actually like focus on something and not just be all over the place. So I started filming it because of that, and then kind of to do like the memory thing, like the nostalgia everyone talks about and stuff like that. And then it just kind of became a channel. I hated, you know, basically it's one of those things where when I'm old and gray and my grandkids are saying, you know, Grandpappy's back here talking about stuff like he used to do, you know, he's telling them stories again. I'd be like, no, there's a video. Y'all go watch it, you know.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
So, you know, and then of course I meet Pete through YouTube, and, you know, he sends me a message and says, hey, do you want to go run Wilson this weekend? And I've never met the man before, never, you know, not in person. I've watched his videos. We've talked back and forth. So I'm like, sure, we'll go do that. I've never been in a whitewater boat before, nothing along those lines. And so my wife asked me, like, are you sure about this? And I'm like, I don't think he's going to kill me. I mean, he doesn't seem like the, you know, kind of guy that's going to take me out and just like drop me off the side of the cliff. Well, you know, maybe a little bit, but so we go out, and that's the 13 swims and the beginning of the swimmer bell.
Yep. The swimmer bell was born
I'm
with
pretty
Kevin.
sure I started that, so everyone can
you did.
thank me for
You
that.
did.
Is that a record?
It is a record.
Gotta
13 swims in one day. That's
Two
the
laps.
record.
Two
laps. That's 4 miles of river, 13 swims. And I was thinking, like, the backstory on this is that Kevin and his buddy Shane were paddling a lot together, and Shane always swam everything. And Kevin had never swum, at least on camera, never swam. Not sure how to say that. But so I called Shane and said, hey, I got a river that Kevin's going to swim on. He's like, you think? I was like, oh, no, I know he'll swim on this one. So we went on a really low water day, never been in a whitewater boat before, 13 swims. And I wanted to highlight each swim with a counter. And so I made the bell, bong, and I put a number 1, then a number 2, all the way to 13. And it was a favor for Shane. And everyone loved it so much that it became a part of the channel, and it kind of morphed into more of a everyone swims, don't be ashamed of it, you know, like join the club, and, you know, because people get all bent out of shape about their swims. And I really wanted to draw the attention to, you can still have fun kayaking even if you're swimming. And while we're trying to avoid the swims and get better, it's going to happen. So,
and the internet never would have known Kevin swam 13 times had you not been filming it.
That's right. And so that's part of the whole storytelling came afterwards. I kind of set out there. I figured he'd swim, but he wanted to get into some whitewater, so we were going to try it. And then the telling of the story, the highlighting, as we said earlier, happened with the swimmer bell. So we all owe it to Kevin. And then,
you know, like a week later, I went out and bought my own boat, so he didn't break me off. So, you know. And I think that proved the point that I could handle whatever he was bringing to the table. So that's when he was like, hey, we're going to go on a trip for 8 days. Where are we going? I don't know yet, you know. So, and that's just kind of a recurring thing. You know, 24 hours later, we're riding to Wisconsin, right? Wisconsin? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a lot, so I can't remember them all. Yeah. It's always the last minute calls.
And the uniting factor for Gatewood, myself, Kevin, Jer, not Brian, because he and I were friends from before, is that we're all trying to tell a story about paddling on a river. And let's get in there and help each other out, tell these stories, teach each other how to be better kayakers, how to be better campers, how to be better editors, and all that good stuff. And Kevin also is a photographer, so and a drone operator as well. So all good to have on trips. They'll see things I miss or point them out. Hey, now Brian doesn't do a lot of filming, but he's got the skills. But I think he uses the time on the water to just get out of the house, get out of the office, have some guy time, and just kind of reset his life and just enjoy it. But he can't help it sometimes. Pete, you're messing up. You're missing that shot over there. I'm like, oh yeah, and go get it. But yeah. So each person is a different person, a different style, different set of skills. But we're all filming the river.
Yeah, and when you first start out, everybody will make fun of you until you put out a cool video, and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I want to be in it now."
Yep. And that's what I tell people. When you're telling a story, if you really want to tell the story, sometimes it feels goofy and awkward. And someone asked me, "I don't know about this, man. I feel kind of corny." I was like, if it's not a little uncomfortable, it's probably not going to be good. And you just got to go for it. And never ask your wife.
That was probably
if this is good. At least for me, she does not want to hear me say another word. So when I show my wife, she goes, do you have to talk? I was like, oh no, maybe it's not good. I'll show my sister. Oh, it's awesome. I was like, okay, yeah, good.
Wait a
and
second.
I show my uncle. No, I can't listen to that. So
the only thing that doesn't lie are YouTube analytics, and they are very blatant about how trash your video is. If you guys don't know, like as soon as you upload a video, it will tell you how it's doing relative to the other, like the 10 videos that came before it. So you could upload a video that you're really proud of and you love, think it communicates a great message.
Oh yeah.
And it's a 10 out of 10.
Yes. I've talked about this with Gatewood for years, with Kevin, Jerry, Brian, Austin, who we're going to bring up his audio in a minute. All of them. You cannot figure out YouTube. So I will say that when you're going to film YouTube, film what's happening, film what you enjoy, make an edit something you want to watch yourself. Don't chase that algorithm. Don't chase that, because you can't figure this thing out. If you could, everybody on YouTube would have, 20 million subscribers. And you basically just need to do it because you enjoy it. And if it gets 5 views or if it gets 2 million, you've made something you enjoy. You made something you like. And I think that can start setting apart your channel from the others. Someone chasing the algorithm, as they call it, is going to be making content that they think YouTube wants them to make. And that'll weave its way into the filming, to the editing, to everything. And it's not as authentic as a product versus someone who just says, hey, for example, Gatewood put up a video of his, he got engaged to his now wife, and he just basically made that for himself. I'm 100% sure that was for Gatewood and his wife, and he was kind enough to share it with us.
Totally.
And it is an amazing video. And that's kind of how you should approach your trip. It's your trip. You were there. That's your memory. Make the best product you can make to capture your memory and share that with the world, but in a way that you want to watch it again later. That's kind of my advice to the editing portion of it.
And all you need is a GoPro. You don't need the fancy equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't chase the views. I mean, this is what I chased the whole time. This is, for those who don't know, this is on the St. Croix. Pete actually, that's me. And Pete took that picture at sunrise over the water of me. And like, that's all I've chased, is finding those memories right there. So I could care less about, I hope everybody enjoys the videos. I try to make them as good as I can, but this is what's important to me. That's what I'll remember when I'm 60, not a comment from someone, which I love them all. And I hope we all make videos that we hope everyone likes, but most of the time, the ones we really like are the ones that get like the least amount of views. The ones you put out there that you're like, oh, this is not that great, but it's just kind of thrown together. And that's the one that's like, bam, 10,000 views right there.
Yeah. Every time.
But that's just my thing, is you can't chase the views.
So what's the best way for fans to help our favorite channels? there's a lot of ways to support a channel, but basically just watching and sharing. I mean, likes, all that stuff is good. But if you share that, wherever you feel appropriate and just watch, tell your friends about it. That's basically the best way to support it.
Yeah, I would say drop a comment that is like
Yeah.
personal to the creator, because a comment doesn't do anything for algorithm. You're not going to affect like how a video's performance does, but you could like psychologically help that creator.
Yeah.
Because they just put a lot of time and effort into that video. And if you enjoyed it, then like let them know like a specific thing that you enjoyed. That's always really cool, and it shows intention.
Yep, that's for sure. Let's try to bring Brian back in real quick. Get ready, Brian. I'm gonna try to bring in maybe Rockingham County's internet is a little better now. Looks better. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, that is way better.
Jamie was using up all the internet.
Right on. Well, good to have you again on the show. Why don't you talk shop a little bit about something maybe you've seen we haven't covered? How to film a kayak trip, tips or tricks from someone who watches us all try our best, and good, bad, or indifferent.
Well, Kevin knows as just as well. Whenever you're kayaking with Pete, he's always telling you to go in front because he's wanting that focal point of the trip, So whenever Pete tells you to lead out, that's when you don't want to lead out.
That means there's some potential coming up sometime. Maybe it's a shot, maybe it's a bell, who knows? But yeah, that's right. And that brings up a good point, Brian. That's why I have Brian. If y'all don't know, if you're new to the channel or haven't heard the story, Brian, basically we all started because I was doing source to sea trips alone, and all my buddies working this military contract we were working said, hey, I want to join you on a trip. So I invited all of them. Nobody came. And then on the second trip, I invited everybody, and they all said yes. And so 6 of them had never paddled before. So I'm out buying boats and everything. And during that trip, it was raining, muddy. We had just gotten down to Rockford, I think it is, and they have a little general store there on the Yadkin River. And there's a hamburger. And we timed it out to meet there at lunch. And this is where a lot of this started. It's the only restaurant on the Yadkin River, and it's a 1-building town. And they opened it up for us because the guy knew who we were, or knew who I was, and said, yeah, we'll open a little early for you. So we got this gourmet hamburger, but getting there was raining and cold and muddy, and climbed a 20-foot bank and then went across through some woods and around a field across railroad tracks. And there we were. And you could tell that Brian had no confidence that there was going to be a burger joint in the middle of this just backcountry North Carolina. But there it was, and we're eating. And I looked at everybody and realized we just looked ragged and wet. And I said, you guys look like gypsies, guys, like straight up river gypsies. And Brian's eating that gourmet burger, and he said, but we're eating like kings, Pete, river kings. And Greg's like, hey, that sounds good. So Brian is responsible for the River King name. He's responsible, I guess, for the burger. Hey, there's Jamie. Hey, girl.
Hi.
We got to get you back on the river.
Yeah.
She's out winning soccer games, folks, and swimming. She's on the swim team, doing really well. Growing up too fast, but we got to get her back in the boat with Dad. Maybe this summer, huh?
Maybe.
Right on. But yeah, so Brian, like the focal point, what he said earlier, bringing it back to what we're talking about. When I go out to do a river trip, especially kayak camping, I want the story to be everyone else there on the trip. And so I want to film you doing this. I want to film you against that bluff. I want to film you coming through the rapid. I want to film you swimming if that's what happens. I want to film the triumph of not swimming. All of that, I want the people I'm with almost always to be the story. I'm in the video. You can't escape that. But I want the videos mostly to not be about me. I want them to be about whoever's there. And that's a good point I hadn't talked about yet, but Brian brought that up. Focal point. What is the focal point of your trip? Overall, and then making that happen on film. Any thoughts, Gatewood?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you could even have two people go on the same trip, and I guarantee you they'll have a different story to tell about that trip. I mean, I'll like my brother is he'll occasionally edit a video, and I could send him my footage, and whatever he'll come out with something completely different than me because he took something away from that trip.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to just enjoy the people while you're on that trip because they're going to make your story, you know?
Absolutely. Yep. And also I will point out that there's been some embarrassing moments as far as the destiny that the river brought the paddlers on my films. But one thing I would say to those wanting to make paddling films with friends is the camera is an extremely powerful tool. It's on that, everything done and said is on that camera. And so one thing I've always strived for is while you may swim, while you may feel embarrassed, well, Brian would attest, you may even feel like you're dying at times. If I mess with the camera, it just feels that way. You're fine. But I never want to portray someone in a truly embarrassing moment, whether it is saying something or, if they're really just, having a hard time, hangry or something. You need to kind of be respectful that is another person and their sentiments matter. So there's ways of telling that part of the story without showing someone's worst moment. Now, swimming, it's on the table. I'm sorry. If you're in my video and you swim, it's going to make the video unless my camera's off. But having the confidence of those on the trip with you to want to go, knowing that you will protect that privacy or that side of things. I don't know how I can articulate it maybe a little better, but just be sure that everyone's comfortable being with you on the trip and they know that you're not going to abuse having that camera, having that information on them. I think that's kind of a big thing that no one really talks about much, but it's a real thing. You don't want to be portrayed poorly, even in your worst moment. And on a trip, you got to use a little grace sometimes. We'll all kind of annoy each other somewhat. But yeah, just make sure they feel comfortable with you filming all the time. And I think you'll get a better product. How about you guys that have been with me? How does that sound?
You're hard to keep up with, Pete. You're always tasteful about all of our shortcomings. So we appreciate that.
Good deal. Well, good deal. Let's see. I'm going to put a link up. And anybody that wants to join us on the chat right now, feel free to come on in. And there it is. When you click that link, you need to turn off your YouTube or at least mute it, so it doesn't make a big echo effect. And then when you get in there, I'll see you if you're in there, and then I'll bring you up into the chat here. Kevin, I'm going to drop you out for just a minute whenever we get someone, if they do come along. And,
you need to let Kevin promote that he dropped a video tonight too.
Yes, Kevin, Wondering Electrician channel put out a video. I've got to be honest, I haven't seen it yet because I was trying to figure this thing out. Want to talk about that real quick, Kev?
It's the what was that? 2 weeks ago, Brian? Is that about right? Cross paddles trip. Went out with those guys on the Uari between 109 and Dennis Road, just a day trip. I think there was like 19 people out there, if I'm not mistaken. But Brian's first time back in a boat for a while, so we had to document that one. But I believe he had a good time out there. But it's just a short video. I think it's like 9, maybe 10 minutes, something like that. But
yep. And I did see the sneak peek.
Little nod to Brian there, and he knows. Yeah, he knows what it is. But just out having fun. But yeah, go check it out. Like I said, about 9 minutes. Won't take you too long. You can do it while you brush your teeth or something.
Good deal. All right. Well, there's Wondering Electrician. I'm going to drop you and bring up Dan, the Southern Paddler. Get ready. I see you smiling down there, Dan. There he is, the man himself, the Southern Paddler, Dan Truitt.
Hey, Brian, guys.
What's up, Dan?
Man, Pete, I think I told you on our phone call recently, but maybe I didn't, but I got to tell you, Wilson Creek was one of the most epic awesome adventures that I've ever seen. I was riveted, and I could not wait from one week to the next for the next series to come out. And part of it was just, when I started watching all you guys on YouTube, Pete, I found your channel. I thought that's the kind of adventures I want. Then when I found Gatewood, I'm like, that's how I want it to look. I haven't done both of those yet, but when y'all got together on that trip, that's part of what make it epic. But just the trip itself was absolutely amazing. It's still one of my all-time favorite videos. It's just incredible, really great.
I want a reunion trip. I want to do it again because I feel like I didn't appropriately pack and I wasn't prepared enough. So I want to do it again. But yeah, that was an epic trip. Yeah. I mean, it was every bit as epic as it looked in the videos, if not more. I mean, it was out of this world. The fact that Pete was able to put that together and had such a crazy idea to hike through the backcountry. I mean, yeah, that was nuts.
A little teaser, Gatewood and I have been talking about a similar trip in a different place that might be, it would not be exactly the same breakdown of how we did everything, but it would be amazing. It would be pack rafting, be hiking, it'd be really remote. And we're kind of toying with that idea, trying to put that together. So it takes little moving parts getting the pack rafts because they're a little bit pricey, but we enjoyed it so much. I think it's definitely going to have to happen again.
And then I can't remember the river, but there's one of your video series where Brian, I think you were having some back trouble. I have lower back issues from time to time, and I hurt for you on that. I just remember thinking, man, I can't imagine, because I do when I go on these trips. I'm just like, I hope my back, stays strong, because man, it could be rough.
Yep.
That was some big water on the new.
Yeah, that was the new river adventure. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
guys. Dan over at Southern Paddler, he is a wonderful Instagram follow as well. He's a paddler that puts a lot of paddling content out there. I'm like, man, is that your full-time job? You go paddling a lot.
A lot. That's always beautiful. Water, so it's easy to get out. It is.
Yeah. I actually thought that too, Gatewood. I was like, is this guy, does he do anything else? And when I see someone paddling that much, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely inspirational.
Well, thank you. I went this evening. Matter of fact, I was, speeding, getting back to get here in time for this video. So I'm glad I made it.
Nice.
If there's anyone else, real quick, Dan is the only one that popped up from that link. I'll post it again. Get on here, man. Don't be shy. The first time I got on someone else's live stream felt weird too, but just get on here. We'd love to talk with you. While we're waiting for someone to click, I know there's someone out there. I am doing a trip with Dan at the end of this week, and yes, sir. And it's going down. We're not. It's a secret. It is all. They all are secrets.
I thought Kevin responded to it earlier. He said it's a secret, but
secret. In fact, we had a kind of a bigger chat for those who were kind of talking about doing this for a while. We wanted to do this back in November. Things just didn't work out, and we've been putting it off. So we got it. And usually, when you got a big trip planned, the group pairs down to about half of the people involved initially. And so the people that are coming and committed, we call not the vanquished, and the others are now the vanquished. So they get cut right out of the thread. It's pretty fun. But
what kind of a trip is it? Is it kind of like something like a current river, or is it something like a Wilson Creek where you'll be doing whitewater?
Not whitewater. It's there'll be whitewater there, but of a lower grade. It'll be
cool
traditional Southern kayak camping on a river I've never been within 300 miles of. So
that'll be a blast.
And I have a friend that lives down that area, so we have some connections to help us run our shuttle. And there's not much on it on YouTube, which if you really want to chase the algorithm, you'll do only very popular rivers. Because
I was about to say, so that means you're going to get no views.
It's going to get no views. But I don't care. I'm going to have a fantastic memory with Dan and about 6 other friends and myself, and we're going to have a good time.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I'm going to bring Brian, I'm going to drop you real quick and bring Austin up here for a minute. Hopefully he's in. And add to stream. Austin, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Right on. We have not heard from you tonight.
I was getting my feelings hurt. I was like, maybe I should just click the link again.
No, this is perfect timing because Dan, I got to tell you, talking with Austin, he was unable to make this trip.
Man.
And his biggest regret is not being able to meet you. So
That's
Man.
true. That's
Yep.
true.
I've just got to say, Austin, since I got your shirt, I wanted so bad to make a video to talk about this great kayaking channel with whitewater and kayak camping, and the whole time have on my River King shirt and say, I just want to give a shout out to my favorite channel, and then rip the shirt off and have my Side Trail Adventures shirt.
I love it. I love it. So Austin, let's hear from you. All things considered of our discussion tonight. If you don't know Austin, he runs Side Trail Adventures YouTube channel. Has done some pretty amazing trips. This summer included going on the John Muir Trail, and among some other things he's done. He's been with us on a few of ours, and he's a great photographer, just like-minded, and gets out there and has a little bit different take on what we're doing. And it's always fun to watch his videos. But take it, Austin.
Well, two things that stuck out for me listening to Pete and Gatewood talk. Pete talked about accuracy by volume, and I think I definitely follow that school of thought, because I film both kayaking and hiking, and they're two very different things to try to document and tell stories. And so especially when hiking, that camera is going to be pointing in all directions all the time. I might just turn it on and start pointing it at stuff and then hope for the best in the edit. But then the thing that stuck out for me, Gatewood, you said it, was you never finish an edit, you just stop. And I was like, that stuck with me, because I was like, that's 100% true. You could tweak and change things and try to fix this or try to fix that. And at a certain point, you just got to be like, yeah, this is good enough for government work. But no, it's fun to be on these, and humbling to see, you got Dan, you got Gatewood, you got Kevin, you got River King Brian, you got River King Pete. Like, it's just it's cool to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's true, Austin. I mean, I know when I'm done with an edit, I don't even know if I like the video anymore because I watched it so many times. I usually need to upload it and then read a few comments and watch it a couple days later and be like, oh yeah, that is a fun one.
Well, that's the challenge. Like, making a video that for somebody that wasn't there, making it something that they would actually want to watch, because it's real easy for us to understand. Like, there's a memory attached to the video already. Right. So it stimulates something in the nostalgia or the memory or whatever, that helps us get that feeling, and to try to convey that feeling and maybe stimulate feeling on the other end to the viewer. That's the challenge. So yeah, I enjoy it.
Right on. Good deal. Yeah. So let me try to do something real quick and see how many I can get on here. I don't even know. Oh, look at that. We'll bring them all back.
I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. I'm looking at a comment by McFalty. I think that sounds about right. About the GoPro working well recently. Yeah, there you go. There's the comment. This is I may have a hot take on this, because I think there's a particular guy who works at GoPro, and he's kind of been at GoPro since the beginning. And one of the biggest, actually, he is the reason why I bought a GoPro in 2013. But if you look back at some of his earlier GoPro videos, they are incredible. And oftentimes, if you watch his old GoPro stuff, you would think it's like better than the GoPro Hero footage, with just the level of creativity that he was able to achieve with that type of camera. So I think although the newest cameras are insane, and it's incredible that it's only $400 and you're getting the resolutions and the frame rates and the stabilization that you get now, it's still like there's still a ton of great videos from back in the day with old GoPros. But yeah, if I had to go back to the old GoPros, I think I would shed a tear, because the stabilization is so good with these now.
Yeah. And while we're on that subject, I see you down there saying I'll bring you right up in just a minute. While we're on that subject, it's really too much to cover in this video. So maybe there'll be a subsequent video or whatnot. But let's talk tech tips a little bit on the GoPro, because that's a glaring omission from this entire discussion. It's all been theoretics and that sort of thing. But favorite settings, Gatewood, go.
Yeah. So for POV, which is point of view, like your chest camera, you're going to want it on super view, which is kind of like there's super view, wide, and linear on a GoPro. Super view is the widest angle, and that's going to give you the most immersive view from here. And usually on the most recent GoPros, that's going to be like 4K resolution, 30 frames a second, and super view. On the rear facing camera, if I'm on a river that has some rapids and something that's interesting in slow motion, I'll toss this up front in 240 frames a second, or just like as slow motion as possible, because nothing looks sicker than hitting a beefy rapid with water spilling over the bow, like kind of making you disappear in ultra slow motion. So I love getting to film that. Otherwise, I'll just have this on a regular focal length, like wide, and a nice high resolution. And then as far as like actual settings go, crank down low sharpness, -0.5 on the EV comp. That's like one of the secrets to getting good GoPro footage. And what that does is it ever so slightly underexposes. It's like you see right now how my face is like very overexposed. It prevents that, so you don't get really harsh highlights, and it kind of just mellows out your footage. And then if you take the sharpness down, and it'll just make it look less digital and more realistic. White balance, the GoPro does a pretty dang good job of that already. And I'm trying to think what other big settings. Like you always want the bit rate on the highest as possible.
ISO.
And yeah, ISO 100 and 100. If you have to change your ISO, your GoPro isn't going to perform very well because it's too dark, and you should use a different type of camera, even your cell phone camera.
There you go.
But yeah, or like introduce a light. So I think oftentimes when you're camping, you'll have a headlamp. If you have to start cranking that ISO, whip out your headlamp and just do that instead.
Yeah.
You're going to blind your friends or yourself, but it'll look good on the tube. But that's kind of like a really high level view for GoPros. On the bigger camera, which probably there's going to be less people using those, I film in 1080p and 120 frames a second at all times, except for when it's dark. Then I'll crank down the frame rates to like 30, just because the less frame rate, the better it does in low light. But honestly, if I could only choose one camera, it would be a GoPro. And if they told you, Gabe, you can have one camera and one resolution setting and never change it, I would be totally happy. I would just do 4K 60 and a GoPro Hero 10, 9, or 8. Yep. And you would be in great hands. That right there, you're set. I use the flat profile, but I think GoPro color does a pretty good job if you don't want to go in and add coloring yourself.
Right on.
I probably just lost everybody on the live stream, but I love
that's something they're gonna. That's how, if you do those settings, your videos will look just like Gatewood's.
And that's the truth. Like it is crazy, but if you do that, it will look exactly like my videos. And then we're going another step geekier, but export your project in 24 frames a second, and that'll just kind of make everything look a little bit more filmic, like Hollywood style. I think a lot of people export in 30 frames, and that's actually what GoPro does. They export all their videos in 30, and it makes it look a little bit more realistic and less filmic. I'm
a 30 guy.
Yeah.
I've never gone 24. I did once, and I went back to 30.
Yeah, I mean it's hilarious. I mean it's like a big divide in the film community.
It is.
But at the end of the day, like, if you think your GoPro is holding back your film quality, just go to the GoPro YouTube channel and quickly change your mind, because they are putting out content that looks incredible, like a cinema camera was filming it.
Yep.
And so you might just need to look at how you're filming, the settings, and how you're editing and post and maintaining that high resolution.
Yep. And I use almost exactly the same settings as Gatewood, mostly because that's what he told me to use when I was trying to figure all this out. And I was having a lot of issues with whiteout on my kayaks, and really bright days on those bright kayaks. It makes like the top of the kayak in the video look white, and it was just driving me nuts. If you watch the where Pete did his first waterfalls, I was dealing with that. Another secret is, on the 10, it kind of solves that for you, because it actually doesn't offer anything less than 60 frames a second on a 2.7, which is what I film on most of the time. But a higher frame rate will also let a little less light in and helps that with that too. So if you're having a lot of whiteout issues, adjusting another thing, you can also adjust your frame rate up. You get a little less light in there. And,
Yeah, totally. Like whenever you've made camp, it's usually evening, sun's going down. Switch it into something like 24 frames or 30 frames. You don't want to be shooting slow motion because that's pointless and it's going to make it look a lot darker.
Yep. And with that, I'm going to bring Sane in here. He's been waiting in the basement. Say hello to Sane Cat.
Hey guys.
What's up, Zane?
How much? You guys doing all right?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Good, good. First time I've been on a live stream, but a little nervous about doing it. But you only live once.
Yeah, you're doing great so far. I think this is like my second live stream. So
Good deal. So what do you have for us tonight, Sane?
Oh, really not much. I just thought I'd jump on here and just really say, I've been, really grateful for mainly all your videos, Pete, because they've been really influential, especially the one where you did in your pool where you're doing the role practice, teaching the roles. That was really extremely helpful when I first started to learn my roles, especially the underwater shots. Could you see all the movements, what you were doing?
Mm-hmm.
When you broke it down was really nice.
Right on. Well, good. I appreciate that. And it actually is, like Jerry said earlier, really encouraging to hear that something you're doing is having a positive impact for someone else somewhere that you don't even know until you start, meeting each other through video or whatnot. But it is really encouraging, and that's kind of touches on what Gatewood said for supporting a channel. Just knowing that it's always like, that's cool. I spent a few hours in a pool rolling, and now I think that one has like 55,000 views, and a bunch of people have said it's really helped. And you don't know when you're making the video, is this going to help anybody? Is this going to be worthwhile? And then to hear that it is, it's really cool and encouraging.
I've sent that link to many of people who were just starting to learn their roles, and
right on.
They were very thankful for that as well.
Good deal. I appreciate it.
It's pretty special. Like I had something really cool happen last year when I didn't post a lot, especially during the season. I was super busy with life, and it just wasn't feasible to also produce a bunch of videos and go on trips. Nothing bad. It was just, life was busy. Someone reached out and was just like, "Hey man, like it's been a minute. Just want to check and see that you're all good." And this was a complete stranger. And I was just like, "Wow, that's like really cool." Someone is checking in on my mental health just to make sure I'm okay.
That's right.
Moving my dad, downsizing him, and trying to help with all that, and doing our own stuff at our house. But it's a special place.
We had that happen on a trip. We did A Beautiful Little River was the name of the river. And the river was the Little River, but I titled it A Beautiful Little River and told everybody that I didn't tell them where we were. So it's kind of like a play on words, little Easter egg. But I did not let them know I was back. And I got message after message. Are y'all okay? Did it? And so now we're back home,
Yeah.
If we let people know we're out there. And it's cool, like you say, like people checking up on you, And well, how about you, Dan? You are quite a photographer in your own right, and now also videographer with YouTube. What are some of your tech tips, or just what do you have to add to the conversation for us?
I mean, yeah, Gatewood, I kind of basically his settings. Now I will say, I don't want to spend a lot of time editing. And so I shoot 4K 30 all the time. I do the negative 0.5 AV comp like he talked about. And then I wasn't clear, Gatewood, what you said, but I saw a video one time that said your ISO is 100 and 800 max. So that's what I run. I wasn't sure what you exactly said on that.
Yeah. So on the older GoPros, I think the max was 400. Like that was the lowest you could take it. And
I'm on the Hero 8.
100, but basically just look at your GoPro and take that ISO and whatever, make it the lowest value for each of them. And what that does is it makes your blacks blacker and just like it keeps them less noisy. Let's see if I can do something with my light. I don't know. I mean, okay, here. This is a perfect example. You'll start to see as I introduce less light, my camera's going to keep exposing, but it's going to look really creepy in the background and like kind of like a haunted house. See how it's getting all noisy and just like less quality? So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with your GoPro.
Okay.
It's going to overcompensate for not having enough light to operate.
Okay.
And whenever you start increasing the light, it'll re-expose. And
yeah. So
I hope that
the only
makes
other
sense.
thing I would add is you have to just be mindful of what your computer can handle. Which is
Yeah.
I know I shot a few at 60 frames per second. That makes the files bigger. I use Filmora 9 or 10, which is a low end program. It's basic. So again, I don't want to spend a lot of time in post, and I don't do any color correction or anything. It's just I want to get my video in there, put the segments together, and have a video. So you have to be mindful of what your software and your computer can handle. So that's one reason I use the settings I do.
Yeah, that's great advice. And like nowadays, you can download the GoPro app on your phone, and you can pull really cool stills from videos and take pictures with the GoPro, which gives you a really unique perspective because it's so wide angle. And you can do everything from your phone if you're not trying to do complex edits. And using Dan's settings will allow that if you don't have like a computer setup.
Yeah, and that was the last thing. I use the wide view and not the super view because there's a little less distortion, a little less fisheye. So I use the wide view on mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on that note, on my helmet cam, I always, with very few exceptions, I always use super view. Because I'm trying to capture everyone else around me, and it does the best job of doing that. And it also brings the most stability to your shot. It's already so wide that when you twist your head a little bit, it's not really moving much. If you go narrow, you really see like a flash of a hand in front of the paddle and maybe a tip of the boat in the bottom of the screen, and your head movement, you lose the viewer. You cannot watch it. It's terrible. So if you got a helmet cam, start with super view. When you start getting the ability to keep your head still, to keep your boat pointing in the right direction, and kind of slow down all those jerky movements. Sometimes, like on the Chattooga video series I made, that overnighter, I filmed in wide because I wanted to bring in all the surroundings. And I had to spend a lot of effort mentally in making sure everything on my head, like the gimbal, as I call it, is very stable. Because the more jerks you have with the narrower, aperture, it's just, I think I'm saying that right. But anyway, it's just going to show up really, really hot and heavy in the edit. And
your head is by far the most stable part of your body. So if you want stable footage, which generally isn't an issue in kayaking, just because you're on water. I mean, whitewater, you have more stability issues than the stuff we do down in Texas. But I think I saw a drone question.
Yes.
Love my drone. It is a vital piece of gear. But the question was about state parks not allowing drones and where do you fly? I would say that we don't really go to state parks to paddle. And maybe that's just because in Texas, there aren't a ton of state parks with good river access like the entire way. Like the river extends beyond the boundaries of the state park. And so what I do is I have this app called AirMap. It's both a website and an app, and it will show you the places you can and cannot fly. And so you always want to adhere to those rules because you can't get in trouble. Like they'll watch your YouTube video, and if they recognize where your drone is and they can prove that you launched there, then they will send you a fine. And I think it happens in national parks more than anywhere else. But there are people out there keeping an eye on people with drones because drones are so prevalent these days, and it's literally so easy. Like I can launch this thing and then hand the controller to a buddy and he can fly it just fine. It really is not very hard these days.
Right on. And this is Alan from B&A Adventures, everybody, joining the chat.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Let's see if I got two more. I'm going to bring Brian and Kevin back in as well. I think we got, we lost Sane. Yeah, I'll bring you back in just a second, Sane. Somehow it bumped you out unintentionally. Alan is from B&A Adventures YouTube channel. Just got in from a big weekend of running up there in Nantahala Gorge, I believe is where you were at the NOC. And
yeah, we did. We did the Tuckasegee on Saturday and the Nantahala on Sunday. We actually took one person down on their PFD on both rivers. Actually, their PFD down in a kayak period. So it was an experience, and he did very well. I mean, Nantahala was releasing at 1,000 CFS, so it's one of the bigger releases they have. Pretty good sized wave trains, and he handled it with ease. Everybody did, as a matter of fact. We had very few swims, but yeah, it was a great weekend getting together with all the people. You know, it was great seeing everybody. But yeah, we just drove 5 hours back from Bryson City after paddling the Nantahala, and I'm just chilling out watching you guys.
Right on. So we were just talking drones. Gatewood is talking drones. And there's a map. That's what you want to show them?
Yeah, this is like an example of everything's backwards on these live streams. So it's really, but that's Big Bend National Park right there. And one side is Mexico, and then you can see where the park is, but it'll have all the boundaries. And so you just kind of navigate around and see where you can and can't fly.
Yep.
And it makes it pretty easy. Yeah, there you go.
They're cheap compared to his.
And when we were on the current river, that's in Ozarks. Is it the Ozarks National? It's some kind of park system up there.
It's Ozarks.
And you can't fly drones there, except one of the guys on our trip had the licensing to fly in the park because he was doing work for the park already. So
cool.
Kind of lucked out there. And sure as the day is long, if you watch that video, we were actually flooded off the river in a pretty big, serious flood event, and we were able to get off and get to safety. But the park ranger who we made contact with, and he was handling the whole extraction and everything, he did give me a call later after my video was out talking about flying the drone. I had to explain, no, we had to risk it. Gatewood is right.
Yeah, they're out there.
There are people out there looking for this stuff. But yeah, knowing where those boundaries are is essential.
Yeah, like a really popular river, the Buffalo up in Arkansas, that is, I think the actual river is a national park. And so that's a big no-fly zone. Someone more familiar with the Buffalo, I think Dan was just there, so he can touch on that better.
Finished there. Yep, you're right. The whole thing is a national park.
Did you fly a drone?
No, I don't have a drone. That's all I can do is manage a canoe and a kayak and a GoPro.
So what you do is you go find a creek that looks like the Buffalo and you drone that, and then you just include it.
That's right.
I've never done that.
So
the magic of post.
Alan, you have a drone. That's correct, right?
Yeah, I've had a drone for a few years now. It's one of the older ones, DJI Mavic Pros, but I enjoy it. I mean, again, I'm all about, I know the air map you're talking about. I reference it every single time because I really do a lot of flying in proximity to airports. So you have to know where you can and can't go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Bible of drones. So, you definitely got to get it.
Right on. And so with the general discussion, I know you came in late because you were traveling. We talked pretty much up and down the list of things for how to film a kayak trip. But you've been doing this YouTube thing for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, about a year and a half, I guess is what I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your approach to filming a kayak trip.
Well, I'm kind of at odds with myself at times when I'm filming because you know what you want to see, and then you go out and try to recreate it. And I'm not really good at that because I seem to miss a lot of the things that I want to include because you want a lot of B-roll. The B-roll is what makes the movie, in my opinion. It's what makes the personal pieces of it come together. So I'm all the time thinking, well, is it on? Is it off? Am I catching the right thing? So when I get to actually putting it in Resolve and doing the editing, I want to present a certain aspect of the trip, but then I find that I have not taken certain pieces of footage that I really would have liked to. But then, you work with what you have. And then in the end, it becomes a story of some sort. I'm not a storyteller like Pete is. Pete's the ultimate storyteller, if you ask me. He can just bring something together out of nowhere. Me, I struggle with it. So it's almost like I have to do the playback and then do a Madden color commentary behind it. But, in the end, it comes out right. It's an experience. It's what we're doing. And it's what people want to see, as far as I know. But, it is what it is. And I'm having fun with it. And as long as I'm having fun with it, that's all that matters.
Alan, one thing that really helped me is there's a guy named his name isn't Video Creators, but there's a channel named Video Creators, and they're really bullish on there being 7 steps to story. And so what I do with each of my videos is just make sure that I'm checking off each one of those steps. And I can probably list them in the chat, but that way I make sure that I cover all the bases as best as I could. And, like there's some where like one of the steps is, who comes along to help them get what they want. Well, sometimes you don't have that, and that's totally fine. Like you don't have to have every single step, but you're probably going to have at least 5 of the 7 each time. Let me track that down and post that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I mean, it's just, it is whatever ends up getting on the camera is what I end up putting on the editing board. And then in the end, I'm just cutting and slicing it, and it just turns out.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and I will say that sometimes I have a bunch of footage from a trip, and I know this is going to be an easy edit, and I go in there and it just comes right together. The story's there. The better your content that you're working with, the easier it is to make a film as well. And that could be class 5 and the action is there, or it can be like the Namakagan, which was there was hardly a rapid that came over your bow the whole trip, but it was some of the most beautiful paddling that we had done. And the story was there in the adventure itself. And I had a really fun time making those stories. Other times I'll have a bunch of footage from a big day and I'm like, this is going to be the easiest edit ever. And it just does not come together, and I'll have to scrap it. The other side of that is on that New River trip, I had one day that was just kind of in the mix on the kind of the middle front half of the trip, and nothing really spectacular happened that day compared to some of the others. The scenery was amazing. There was a long lake paddle. There's just a lot was going on, and we of course ended at dark again on an island. And I realized I had never told the story about the boats. So that day's video was the boats. Nana introduced everyone's boat. Like the paddlers were somebody that was like their horse. And it was just, and it came together so easily. That was the easiest video of the whole series I made. And I did not set out to make a story about my kayaks when I was on that river trip. It was just something that kind of came to me. I just noticed, sometimes that's the way it is. You go out there and film, and the story's there. You just gotta look into what you did and find it. And
you kind of mentioned this too. Sometimes finding the music can be a real struggle too.
Yes.
Sometimes, every time.
Yeah,
that is
an hour listening to music. Absolutely, on Epidemic Sound.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, every video you spend just as much time finding music for it.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm just honored that Alan said that RKB roll makes the film.
I don't remember saying that, but all right, okay.
So I'm thinking we'll give this about another 10 minutes or so, guys. But if you're out there in the chat, we've had Sane and we've had Dan jump up in here. If we could get an Alan, if someone else is out there, click that link. It's really easy. Come and join us. Talk to us a little bit on the chat. It's a lot of fun. There's the link. Don't be shy. We have a great time on here. And there's no dumb questions. Just a world full of inquisitive idiots is what a professor told me once. That was pretty funny. Tim Haraway, this is great. Thanks, Tim. Who said something?
I said I've been asked some different questions than you then.
Since this is a video creation thing, one of the an interesting stat I heard a while ago was that humans register audio before they see video. And so they did testing, and basically people will click off a video faster if the audio is trash. Whereas you could have trash video quality and great audio storytelling, and people will watch exponentially longer than if you had an incredible cinema camera that just wasn't telling a good story, or maybe the audio was peaking and just sounded horrible to the ears, which I think makes sense because you watch a lot of like the Netflix documentaries, and they're kind of showing old footage from way back in the day, and it's not good quality by any means, but it means a lot because they're telling story and kind of conveying it in a different way. So that's another thing, is like you can go out and film an incredible trip, But if the audio from that trip is not intriguing and it's just loud music the whole time, that doesn't do much for you.
Yep. Right on.
Like use the music to enhance it. And I think you'll find that that works really well.
Right on. So I've got Bob McElroy in the basement here. Get ready, Bob. I'll give you a couple minutes to get set, and we're going to bring you back up in here. But Dan, I'm going to cut you out in just a second, and feel free to stay in the basement. You don't have to log out. That way we can chat after it's over.
Sounds great.
But I'll be doing a trip with Dan, leaving Friday. So we'll be meeting up somewhere in the South.
Yeah.
Friday around noon.
Is it
And,
Texas? Is it Texas?
It's kind of just outside of Houston.
Oh, cool.
No, there's been a couple times I wish I could get Gatewood, but he's coming from Texas. It takes a little bit to get out here. But there will be more collaborations for sure. And it'd be fun to get like a big group together and do something.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah, that'd be a blast.
It would.
Right on. So yeah, look for we're speaking of the Buffalo River. Give the Southern Paddler YouTube channel and Instagram a look. He is taking us through the Buffalo River right now. Had some woes on day one. Namely, he does not have his boom for his camera, and he's adapting and overcoming. And you wouldn't know it because the footage is fantastic. And I love hearing him go through the wave trains, hooping and hollering. It sounds like a 7-year-old boy having the time of his life. And that's what the trips are really all about. And he's captured it. So go give him a look. But thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Hey, enjoyed it. Thank you.
See you, Dan.
Right.
See you, Gatewood. See you, Brian. Good.
See.
So
Yeah, Crush Mandible. You know what the Buffalo Bayou is? Must be Houstonian. Buffalo Bayou is the main river that runs through Houston, and it's basically just a giant sewer, muddy sewer.
Oh.
That's about it.
Let's do it. Woo! I'm sure. I told Gatewood, literally told him he could film himself mixing pancake batter, and it would be amazing. So maybe that's a creator idea right there. Like, let's see the pancake batter film. But
well, Pete, we'll put that up to a test because pretty soon I'm about to film a how to make good boat ramp coffee. So it'll probably dive, but that's all right.
Right on. Well, so this is Bob McElroy. How you doing tonight, Bob?
What's up, Bob?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Good to see you guys. Finally put faces with names.
Absolutely.
On the chats. This is good. Good to see you guys out there and about and doing what I can't do right now. So
we haven't seen Bob in years.
The home stomping grounds.
Yeah, we hadn't seen Bob in years. I think we met first Rocket Dock. What year was that? 2000.
19, 18 or 19?
19. Yeah. Down there in Florida, had a great time with them hanging out. Paddling Florida whitewater. We found the only rapid in Florida and ran it. But so what have you been up to, Bob?
Not a whole lot. I've been doing a little bit of kayaking down here around Tampa Bay. There's a new program that they've got a few of us starting where we're going to basically circumnavigate the entire bay shoreline.
Nice.
And just map out places where we think launches should be and campsites could be, and we'll go from there.
That sounds amazing. Well, I got a question. Looking at the cast of characters we've had on tonight's show and the discussion, what are some things that you enjoy most about the kayak camping trips that we put on YouTube, or kayaking in general? What are the aspects of what we're putting up with content that really hit home with you the most?
It's me. It's got to be.
It's got to be obvious.
The talent.
Let me stop laughing first.
Easy, Brian.
It's great. It's fun to see everybody in the trip, but looking at the spots that you choose to camp on, knowing that in some cases you've already picked them out or scouted them out before time, just knowing that fact helps out a lot. But that and seeing some of the river runs Pete, you give an excellent narrative, especially on the morning, especially foggy mornings, and then the sunsets, things like that. That's what people hit the river for.
Yeah.
You know, seeing a lot of the nature shots that you don't pick up when you're riding down the road beside the river, hitting it at a slow pace and running it down, and then the bits of excitement of hitting the whitewater or hitting a little bit of rapid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing that I look forward to, especially with the videos that you guys put up. That's the thing I key in on is picking the right spot, how to hit certain areas through, deciding when to portage, when not to.
Yeah.
Those little tips, it's like in my younger days in prior life, I paddled a lot around Nantahala and the French Broad, Pigeon River. Those were my home turf.
Nice.
And seeing some of those spots again, Nantahala's completely changed from when we used to do it. Buddy of mine and I were the 5th C2 class canoe to go down the lower Wesser Falls. Everybody made it through Upper Wesser, but we attempted the lower Wesser, and that didn't go real well.
Yeah, they call that worser Wesser now. You're talking about the one at the very, very end?
Yeah, down past where the
slalom
gates
course
are at now, where the crossover to the campground is.
Yeah.
This is before the campground was there.
Gotcha.
The campground used to be right there in that triangle spot across from the restaurant.
Nice. Yeah,
and that's when we used to hit it.
That's what like that. What you kind of reminded me, like connecting the viewer to your experience is what I'm after. And I can do that by telling my story or telling the story of the trip in the best way so that I can remember it later, every detail that mattered, and bringing my memory back through that trip later. It's kind of how I approach it, and that brings the viewer through as well. And it takes a lot of work to do that, both getting a lot of footage and then editing. And it's going to be more than just chop, 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 chop. And it doesn't have to be. Gatewood's really good at doing this in just a few minutes. But I'm kind of the Annie channel. I don't want to lose all my details, so I just 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is, I'm just throwing it up there, kind of doing my own thing. And
yeah, people yell at me in the comments. They're like, "You need longer videos," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
I don't know. My audience retention graph says otherwise, so y'all aren't watching the whole thing."
Yeah, so Gatewood is he gets that story right across. And for the viewer at home, how are you going to do that? That's going to be up to you to decide from how you're going to approach the river, how you're going to film while you're on the river, what your edit's going to look like, when you're going to pull the cameras and the drones out, how many batteries you take. All of it goes into it. Just being able to have the ability to film all the time brings other things into the trip, like the need for solar chargers and power banks and an electrician who can fix your solar charger on trips when you have a short in a wire or something.
There you go.
Yeah, it is a lot of work that gets put into it, but just like Bob's talking about, when you can bring Bob back to that place that he saw however many years back, and he's just right there again, that's kind of what it's all about. So
yeah, that's the truth. And what's really cool about kayak camping is you can do the same river. And I don't know, I forget who has the quote, but it's like, a river is never the same, or like a man never steps in the same river twice.
Yeah,
so the river is changed and so is the man, or something. Anyway, I think it's so true, because you could have a flood that comes through. Like, people will ask, like, "Hey, where's that island you camped on?" I'm like, it's probably gone. It's been 2 years, and it's probably been washed away and changed. And who knows? It could be even better now, or it could be overgrown with weeds and worse. So there'll be times like we'll go do the same stretch after a 2-year hiatus, and it's done nothing but grow weeds the entire time, so it's not inhabitable, and we just keep on paddling in search. But that's one of the reasons why I think people keep going back to the river, because it just changes every time.
Yep.
And yeah, Andrew, you're so spot on. The spiritual aspects of just connecting to the river. It's hard to beat.
That's it.
We
There's
lost
times when you got to clear the head, and that's a good place to go to get it.
Right.
Yep.
That's what I said. Sometimes the narrative, Pete, especially with yours, really kind of zones in on what we're looking for.
right on. I appreciate it. But I got to be honest. I cannot do that with my wife in the room, because sometimes, when you're trying to say it, you may say it a few times. I'm trying to say it the right way. I'll be narrating and she's reading a book in the background, and hear this, and she's over there trying not to snicker. I'm like, out, I can't do it. But
Yeah.
dude.
That's
You did not.
Oh man. Well, let me give the round robin to the guys. Thanks for stepping on, Bob. I'm gonna stay in the chat. I'm gonna drop you out into the basement, but don't go away. So I'll chat again. So,
Got it.
We'll start with Kevin. As we wrap this up, just take a minute or two and tell us what your thoughts are.
Who you starting with? My phone, mine was breaking up.
Yeah, we'll start with
Yeah,
Kevin.
mine was breaking up. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Just give a quick wrap up. Start with Kevin, and then Dan, Brian, then we'll end with Gatewood.
Quick wrap up, as in
Kayak
Thanks,
camping, filming camping trips, filming kayak trips.
So, first of all, the one of the people that I'll kind of like, everybody thinks they're Survivor Man, but Les Stroud, he's the one that I heard that said the same thing that Gatewood said about if you have bad audio. Like, he was the first one to do good audio with a documentary kind of thing. I was actually watching that the other day, but that goes back to what Gatewood was saying. But I agree with you, Gatewood. Bad audio is just horrible to watch. It doesn't matter how bad the shot is. But so kayak camping for me, I mean, it's what I love to do. Honestly, I've met some of the best people in the world. Some of my closest friends now are you guys that travel all over with me and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of other people that I know look at me a little crazy for some of the stuff we do and some of the things they see that we do. And I agree with Pete. I cannot voice over a video with my wife anywhere near me. I don't even want her to watch them, because she'll laugh at me the minute she watches them. But and she doesn't watch them, so but that's all right. But it's good to meet everybody. I mean, I love meeting everybody. I was in Nantahala this weekend with her. Actually, we did our first raft ride, or her first time down the Nantahala was we did a 2-person raft. But I told her, I was like, well, and she thought I was messing with her. I was like, just don't be surprised when someone comes up and says, hey, and stops me down. She's like, yeah, right. Like, that's really going to happen. And of course, I run into about 10 people. Some people are hollering out of the restaurant, hey, Kevin, and Alan's up there, Bonnie's up there, several other people, Matt Ward. But it's just kind of crazy, all the people that I know because of this. And, I really don't, YouTube's not something I'm ever doing to make money that is beyond what I do it for. But it's the experiences I get to have and the people like you guys that I get to meet and all the people that comment in the chat and stuff like that, that's what makes it for me. I could care less about money side of it, fame side of it. I just really enjoy where it's taken me. And I thank all of you for all of that. So we'll go.
Wait, YouTube hasn't made you rich yet?
Close.
A couple more videos and he'll be
a couple more videos and I'll be there. All right. So I'm good. Thanks, everybody.
Right on.
Yeah, like Kevin said, it's great to see everybody, to meet everybody, and I hope that people can see from this video in this chat just what a great community is. We're not competing. We all enjoy each other and we all learn from each other, and I guess that's my main thing, because I know that I've specifically have asked Pete and Gatewood, and Austin questions. I told Austin that on my Buffalo River trip, first time I'd done a 7-day trip. I picked up some of his advice from the John Muir Trail video about, storage and media and all the digital media you got to deal with. So great advice from here. So you got a question, just ask these guys, ask anybody. And my other thing would be do your thing. My trips mostly are day trips. Pete and Gatewood, they do these great overnight trips. Overnight trips are rare for me, but just do your thing, enjoy it and have fun with it. And, and there'll be somebody out there that'll enjoy watching it too.
Right on. Well, good deal. Yeah. And again, I appreciate you coming on here with us and enjoying watching your buffalo trip. And I cannot wait to get out there with you Friday. And
I'm pumped. I'm so stoked. Absolutely.
Don't go anywhere. Stay down there in the basement, and we'll get back to you in a little bit and move on to Brian, man.
I think it's hilarious that you wanted me to come on how to film a kayaking, because I don't film anything.
Well, you do. You just don't operate the camera.
True. I would say, and Gatewood would probably agree, that when you're looking at a scene, you're looking for contrast. You're looking for stuff that, is not commonly found. We always love cliff shots because there's no cliffs around here. Yeah. So something different, something that catches your eye. If you're looking at a big hillside, something with some shadow and some contrast, it all kind of makes it pop.
Right on. And having good friends around like you makes the content easy. It's not awkward. It's a true friendship, and it just comes across on the camera and makes everything else fun. So good deal. Well, thanks for joining us again, and I'm glad you kicked the girls off the internet. I was missing you in the beginning there.
Yeah.
But and stick around. We'll get you back in the chat here in just a second too after we shut it down.
All right.
All right, Gatewood, take it away. Final thoughts.
Last and certainly least, I've word vomited all of the settings and things like that, but really I'm just so grateful for kind of the community that's evolved around all of these different channels and that come together, and there's so much cross-pollination between the channels, which is the coolest part. Like when I come and watch your live stream and in the chat, it's the same people that I see comments from under my videos, and really that's been so cool to see it kind of prosper like that, because I watch other types of YouTube videos like hiking and mountain biking, things like that, and they have really strong communities as well. And I'm always like, wow, that's really neat. And then you come back over to kayaking and you're like, hey, we've got one too. That's awesome. But no, at the end of the day, don't let filming, like if you're nervous about taking your camera and using it, just take it and don't use it. I mean, like you'll figure out pretty quick whether or not you enjoy filming it. And one of the best ways to get into it is just taking pictures of your trip. Because if you get 6 to 10 solid pictures from your trip and then you share it in a Facebook group, like you'll get like a local Facebook group, you'll get tons of interaction and feedback. Like you don't need to go out there and grow a channel to have that. You can do it on a much smaller level, and like you can still tell a great story through photo.
Absolutely.
So video is definitely intimidating, a factor that keeps you from even trying it. But the most important thing is just getting out on trips with cool people.
Right on. Well, there you have it, folks. That's Gatewood Brown and the other cast of characters talking about how to film a kayak trip. I hope you got something out of it. It's kind of a giant topic, and I just wanted to approach it that way. Let's just go cover the whole river, so to speak. And if you have questions, always you can hit me up on Facebook. It's probably the easiest place to do it, or I'm sure Gatewood as well. If you have tech tips and it's a GoPro, I can probably help you somewhat. I know Gatewood can for sure, as well with those other cameras as well.
I respond to every single comment and every single DM.
Right on. I do that too, and that is one of the things I like most about running the channel is just the interaction I get with the community. And it's just Gatewood's same frame of mind. So yeah, hit him up if you got a question about what he's doing. Definitely check out his channel, Gatewood Brown, coolest name in kayaking. I actually asked him once if it was his real name, and it is, but it sounds like Hollywood. But yeah, he's got some amazing stuff out there, folks, and he's helped me a ton getting my camera game, my editing game together, and I definitely always appreciate that. So it's fun to watch him grow, take off, and just have success doing what he likes to do, like me, for the simple joy of doing it. And it shows up that way. So Right on. Thanks for coming on, brother. And we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate everything you've done for the sport and everything you've done to help me get into it.
Right on. And I'll talk with you again in just a second here.
See you guys. See y'all.
All right, folks. So that's the show tonight. My first one, it kind of went about 2 hours. I had no idea it'd go that long. But when you got a bunch of friends talking, it seems like it goes pretty quickly. Let me know, drop me a comment in the actual comments below if you enjoyed it, if you want to see more of this or a shorter version, or if you liked it the way it was. Also, let me know who else you'd want to see on there. I don't know how often I'll do this, but it is fun to have, especially on a night like tonight when I did not have anything prepared, because I'm a real human with a life and a family as well. And sometimes it just doesn't come together. And we just did our family vacation, and weeks before that didn't really allow for a lot of paddling. And just so that's where we were. I was like, let's do a live chat. I think it'll be fun. So let me know if you liked it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the chat. Sorry I couldn't get to everything, but I do appreciate all the interaction. And next time, definitely be sure to tune in and jump in the stream with us. And until next time, we'll see you on the river, and have a good one. See you.